After our little recess, we're back. So welcome. I'm just going to read some preamble at the beginning of every meeting, which I do, which is welcome everyone, councillors, officers, and we have some friends from the Ministry of Defence and Wing Commander Alex Drake from the Royal Air Force is joining us for the first item, and then after that item they can go on with their day job and travel to wherever they've got to fly to. So reminder to everyone to switch off your mobiles or put onto silent. There are members of the public press attending this meeting virtually. Can I please ask those attending virtually to switch off your microphones to avoid any disruption during the meeting? The meeting is being recorded and will be available in due course on the council's YouTube channel. To ensure that those attending virtually can hear the proceedings and for the recording to capture the entire meeting, please ensure that you project your voice and speak clearly. Please remember it's a formal meeting and therefore do not refer to each other by first names. There is no fire alarm planned, therefore upon hearing the fire alarm, please leave the building via your nearest marked fire exit and assemble at the top of the car park outside. Fire exit outside car park. Thank you very much. So now that's out of the way. Welcome, and let's go through the first one. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair. Received apologies from councillors Peter Lever, Biederman and David Knight, Chair.
Thank you. Item 2, to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on 3rd of July 2023, pages 7 to 20. Do I have a mover?
Chair, can I ask a question about minutes?
Yep.
Page 14, about the Butchers Row Cross Street proposals. I thought there was talk, I might have got this completely wrong, but I thought we were going to go to further consultation. I was just wondering what's happened with that. Has the consultation started? And whereabouts are we with it? But there's no mention of it in the minutes.
Yeah.
Now we got that wrong because I thought it was
You may have well got it wrong, Councillor Clare.
Well,
Well, I'll ask Mr. Triggs just to clarify.
got a change from the minutes. To do with issues on the drop curve and things like that, but I thought there was going to be consultation started with businesses.
The team were going to Bath to have a look at what was provided in Bath. Got further updates. I don't think there was a consultation.
No, not you go, because it was going to be undertaken with the National Institute of Law. I haven't caught up with the programme team to understand the outputs.
Councillor, thank you. Councillor Proudsmore wants to.
So I think that from my memory, because this part of the project was completely funded by ourselves rather than from central sort of government funding, it was decided to put the scheme off for a while these explorations carried on. I don't think it was going to be a public consultation at this stage. I think it was basically to go and find out what the other options were before it came back.
Yeah.
I think that's
That's where I'm mistaken. I thought we'd actually said there would be further consultation.
No.
That's what actually.
I remember, yeah, it was basically that they go out and explore different options and then bring it back to the committee.
Right. So can I then just ask when those proposals are going to come back to the committee?
The visit to Bath has taken place, so the team were just pulling that together. So a further report will come back. We'll get an update from the head of regeneration to bring an update report back to you. It may come back to the October meeting, provide an update and bring that back to you. As Councillor Prowse said, there's no time pressure in terms of grant funding because that element of the scheme is being funded from our funds rather than the grant funding. So there is no time delay, but we'll get an update report and bring that back to members' chairs for the next meeting.
No,
Thanks.
Good. I have a second there. Councillor Brown, yeah. All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. So that's carried. Thank you very much. Items brought forward, which in the opinion of the chair should be considered by the meeting as a matter of urgency. There are none. Item 4, anyone got any declarations of interest?
I know,
Councillor Maskell.
thank you, Chair. I'm a member of Devon County Council. Also,
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
I noticed that the certain councillor Beaverman have done so, so I thought perhaps I ought to. On item 8.
On item 8.
No.
I don't think you would have to. Are you looking at the minutes from last time?
Yes, sorry,
Yeah, thought you might be.
ignore me.
Yeah, that's all right. I just have one as a former member of the Royal Air Force in the Armed Forces Covenant, just another interest, which is in item 6. Any others? Thank you very much. We agree the agenda, part A and part B. There is no part B. So we're okay on that. So we'll go on to item 6. So Forces Covenant, pages 21 to 28, report by the head of customer focus. Now, for councillors who may be new this term, the Armed Forces Covenant, we signed a previous version, and then it's been updated since then. But what we have got, we've got an expert who deals with this right from the Ministry of Defence. Who will say something, but if I could ask John and Alex maybe just to come in after Sarah's just explained from the council's point of view for councillors to understand. Sarah?
Thank you, Chair. Morning, members. So this report is to outline the work and policies that NDC have in place with regard to supporting both veterans serving the military and reservists in order to give you all the necessary assurance that we are in a position to sign the new Armed Forces Covenant. Within this report, you will see various aspects of that support, both in promoting the armed forces, supporting national events, specific aspects where we are actually actively supporting both the veterans and their families in various policies that we have regarding housing, regarding council tax, and also for reservists as well, so they can obtain all the training needed. As part of this, we're also going to ensure that this is reviewed on an annual basis and make sure that any further policies that have been updated since are included. And this will be on our new website when it's launched later on this month. And again, that will be regularly updated as well. I think that's all I need to say, Chair.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sarah, and well done for the work that you've put into this as well. Could I just ask John if you would like to say some words from the Ministry of Defence?
Good morning, Chairman. John Beek, Regional Employer Engagement Director, working on behalf of Ministry of Defence, based out of the Reserve Forces and Cadets Association. So my role is to help, assist, guide and coach organisations, employer organisations, charities, partnerships, to adopt the Armed Forces Covenant and then to help them develop their support, as has been suggested, and then help them reap the reward by getting an employer recognition scheme award for the level of support that they're delivering. So key points to note, as Chairman said, you previously signed the covenant in a previous guise, as it was known at that point in time a community covenant. You were a co-signatory alongside other organisations on Devon County Council's covenant. They recently have adopted the new format of covenant and adopted it in their own right, and you've lived very similarly. For those people that aren't aware of the covenant at all, it's a moral obligation that we've got as a UK society to look after the armed forces and those people connected to it, and has always been the case. The government put it into loose legislation in 2011, and you should be familiar that that legislation was improved, tightened, beefed up last year, and councils now have the duty to give due regard to the Armed Forces Covenant as a result of that covenant legislation that came into force in November last year. So you signing your own covenant is very, very welcome, and the fact that, as Sarah's mentioned, an annual review is very, very welcome. So from the Ministry of Defence's perspective, thanks very much, Chairman.
Thank you. And basically what it means is that anybody who's served this country, including their families, so, you know, they may not be strictly, signed up as a member of the armed forces, but their families and their children should not be put any more at disadvantage as a result of their service and us asking as a society for them to live here or in another country. And it's just putting them, equality and being inclusive as an organisation. So, I'll be very proud to sign this today. So Alex, do you want to say anything as a serving RAF officer at the moment?
Yes, Chair, delighted to principally say that, on behalf of Defence, it's always an honour to be able to sign as a co-signatory for organisations like yourself who are pledging to support and continuing to support Defence in its wider guise. As mentioned, we're not just talking about the regulars, there are thousands of reservists, the wider Defence community, families, veterans, including cadet forces as well. And it's not a light undertaking, but with the support of entire communities and organisations such as yourself, it enables the military across the piece to do what they actually continue to do. It's not an easy job, and no one signs for an easy life, but it's the support that comes at the grassroots level that enable folk to deliver and continue to deliver around the world as they do today. So thank you for watching the
Thank you. So just to formalise, could I ask the committee, are you all in favour that we sign this as a council to show our support? Would you have a mover? I'll move from the chair. I've got a seconder. Councillor Bell, all in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. So, could I ask you to come up? I'm going to get out of the way. I'm going to play the favourites. That's far enough, or we can have it on there. Get out of the way. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
Let's get this boilings back, John. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry to bring you back down from Edinburgh. I'm sure you'll get back to.
Thanks, Chris, Chairman. Thank you.
Cheers, thank you. Thank you. Safe care. Item 7. To agree formation of a councillor climate action team, pages 29 to 34. Report by Sustainability and Climate Officer. Welcome.
Morning. You want to start off with councillor Moore?
Okay, yes. Thank you, Chair. As lead member for climate and biodiversity, this represents my first presentation to the Strategy and Resources Committee. There's been some gap between the last time the CAT, the Campaign Action Team, met back in March, and some delay in setting this up for the next session. I understand the reasons for that. I've been in contact with our former colleague, Mr. Lofthouse, former councillor Lofthouse, and I thank my colleagues on staff at Scullin and Donna and Mark in particular for the support they've given me, because it's been obviously a journey for myself. And also I'd like to pay tribute to, not tribute, it's a bit strong, but thank Councillor Lever, who's helped me to focus on the procedures. You have the report in front of you, colleagues. It's I commit to you. It's clearly a complex procedure for the whole council to achieve net zero by 2050. I'm under no illusions about that. It remains embedded throughout this organisation, in all its committees, and certainly in terms of our local plan. If you have read the terms of reference, and if you have a chance to refresh your memories or have a look at the council's carbon and environmental biodiversity plan, it's a very responsible and credible document. And I commend the report therefore to you, particularly, in my opinion, my unbiased opinion, the quality of the team that have agreed to take part in this working group. Okay, we will be having an inaugural meeting in a couple of weeks' time. But prior, and from then on, it will be bi-monthly meetings. I'll take any questions, but as I said, I can report to you, colleagues.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to say anything? No.
Oh, just to say, I'm delighted with the report, and happy to move it, and it's obviously a really important aspect of the work of this council, and extremely important, not just for this council, but for the whole world. So I hope that everybody will be fully in agreement with this.
Lovely. So you've got the recommendation.
Councillor Crackler.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Camp.
Thank you, Chair. Very quickly, my surprise came tonight to know that I'm voting in favour of this. But in the same way that when this was first mooted about 3 or 4 years ago, I said then it would be handy to see some figures against some of this, and it's always a bit fluffy on the figures side. And we're told, oh, you can't put a figure against it, it's business as usual. Well, if it's not business as usual, there is a figure against it. So I would say myself and Councillor Knight probably would agree that some figures would be useful for opposite reasons. I would say, because it would show that none of this can be achieved for free, which is sometimes what the Guardian tells you. But from your point of view, it'd be handy because you could say to your constituents, we've spent this much on delivering net zero for you. So I think for both of our reasons, more figures would be useful. So if you see a cost, electric bin lorries, don't go there. We're going to have to, aren't we? Well, that's what I say about it. Yeah. I'm in favour, I'll vote for it, but it'd be nice to see some more figures.
Also, this is the amount we have saved you by implementing these over a long term.
You read it, guys.
That's fine.
Same with Secretary of Education.
We've had a proposal to approve. Have we got a second there? David?
Right, I just want to say a couple of words.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to congratulate Councillor Knight for actually pushing this forward, because this to me is one of the reasons why I came on the council in the first place. You know, we've all heard and seen the stories over the summer. It's going to continue, it's going to get worse. This is the most important thing that's affecting life. Full stop. And it's going to permeate through to every single aspect of the council. All officers have to be fully aware of what's involved in this. And yeah, there'll be a bit of part of it if we get it right, because there will be problems there. But you know, it's going to be worth it in the long run. And I think Councillor Knight has got this ball going, and where it's going to go, hopefully in the right direction. I want to be part of that. And I think we should all be part of it, because it is mammoth, this task, and we can't just pay lip service to it. That's the big danger. We cannot pay lip service. We can't afford to for kids' sake, for everybody's sake. So I do hope we all take this as seriously as it deserves to be taken. That's thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to second it.
So we've got a proposal and a second there. All those in favour?
Councillor Katrina, so thank you. Okay.
Sorry, John.
Okay, I was just going to try and help, councillor Pratt. On pages 63 and 64, there are some figures that he was asking for. No doubt there are other ones. If he has something specific, I expect as well. They're incorporated. Thank you.
Yeah, before we move on, can I also just quickly ask, it's not related to this specifically, but councillor Knight, other councillor Knight, David Knight, has asked me to bring up about the situation with other working groups.
Yeah, we'll take that up outside this because we can get them to, the league members should be organising those.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask,
Yeah.
is that the case?
Yes.
It's down to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So item 8, so that's all done. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ricky, for that. Item 8, performance of financial management quarter 1, 23-24. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members. I'm here to present the quarter 1 performance report. The recommendations are detailed in your report in 2.1 to 2.6 on page 35. Firstly, I'd like to talk you through the revenue budget position. The revenue budget for 23-24 was approved at full council on the 22nd of February 23 at 14.766 million. The forecast budget surplus as at quarter 1 is £17,000. The variances making up this small surplus are shown in Appendix A on page 43. The original budget for 23-24 is forecast to achieve £250,000 worth of vacancy savings. The current position forecast that we're currently achieving 93,000 based on known vacancies at the moment, but it's anticipated by the end of the year that the full budget will be achieved. The National Pay Award is being considered by the unions. However, if the 23-24 pay award exceeds the budgeted 4% included in the original budget, then we've looked to fund the shortfall from the Budget Management Reserve, which currently has a balance of 814,000. The Collection Fund Reserve of just over 1.34 million is held to deal with timing differences within the Collection Fund. The reserve includes just over 912,000 that we utilised during 23 and 24 to mitigate timing differences of the business rate awards in 22-23. This leaves the reserve with a residue balance of just over 427,000 for protection against future volatility. The Valuation Office have notified the council they are to reduce the rateable value for the museum from 146,000 to £1. This change has been backdated to 2019 and a refund in rates payable has resulted in a net positive impact to the council of 184,000. And it's recommended that we put this refund amount and contribute it to the regeneration reserve for future projects. As of the 31st of March, the council's external borrowing is still £3 million. And due to ongoing high interest rates, the council is reporting 90,000 increase in interest receivable. Earmark reserves can be found in a table in Appendix B on pages 45 and 47. Now moving on to capital. The 23-24 capital programme is attached at Appendix D. The current 23-24 capital programme currently stands at just over 28 million. We are proposing variations of minus 5.6 million, consisting of additional schemes of just over 1.1 million and slippages to later years of 6.7 million. The details of these can be found in 4.4.3 of the report on pages 37 and 38. These changes take the revised capital programme 23-24 to 25-26 to just over £35 million. And this is funded by 13.5 million capital receipts and borrowing, 18.6 million external grants, and £3 million from our earmark reserves. The actual spend at the end of June is just over £2.3 million. Release of funds for this course can be found and seen in 4.4.8 on page 39 of your pack. And then within 4.5 and 4.6, there's further information on debt management and general debtors. Finally, moving on to Appendix E, this sets out our new suite of performance measures and Nina is here to provide a little bit more context. But before I pass over to Nina, does anybody have any questions so far?
Any questions from what you've read, members? Councillor Bell and Councillor Clare. Councillor Bell?
Thank you. Sorry, I will try to project. This is a simple-minded nurse question, I'm afraid. We have 90,000 in vacancies. Is that why we're saving money because we have vacancies?
That's where we've had vacancies throughout the first quarter, where we've had a delay in filling the posts. And by the time you go out to advertise and actually recruit to those posts, that's the time from when the person leaves to when the new post is appointed. So that's what we've recruited so far in the first quarter.
Given how hard all officers work, should that money, should that saving, part of that saving be allowed into further recruitment and training to ensure that, again, as a simple-minded nurse, I just wonder if this is how things might work.
Those vacancy savings are available for the managers within the units to use for agency if needed, but obviously this particular element is in relation just to the vacancy from when somebody sort of unexpectedly left to when we can get the advert out and then successfully recruit to that post. I don't know whether John would like to add anything more to that.
Yeah, and in terms of recruitment and training, we have separate recruitment and training budgets to the vacancy savings. So service managers and the HR team do have a recruitment pot they also can use to try and widen the recruitment to attract the vacancies to be filled as quickly as possible. As Tony said, we do utilise some of the vacancy savings to temporarily fill posts with agency staff, but we try and minimise that as much as we can and try and get the recruitment carried out as quickly as possible.
I just don't feel these vacant positions, it's obviously it's further work for more people and more difficulty for members of the public. The museum, why did we save so much money? Again, a simple-minded question. I just didn't see why anyone gives away several tens of thousands of pounds.
Yeah, I'm more than happy for people to give me money. The valuation office value all of the businesses in terms of their rateable values for business rates. And previously the museum had been valued historically at a rateable value of 140 something thousand, I think it was. We've worked with some external consultants to look at trying to challenge some of those valuations with the valuation office. That does have an impact to us because obviously we do get a proportion of the business rate income back to us as a council. So we've successfully managed to get the valuation office to revalue the museum from 140,000 rateable value down to £1. So they've looked at what the museum is offering and they've agreed in line with other museums across the country to reduce it down to £1. That has a benefit to us by giving us a refund of one-off amount of around 300,000. But because we lose a proportion of the business rate income, the net effect to us is about 180,000. That's a one-off windfall, but we will get a benefit ongoing of about £40,000 a year.
A simple question, thank you. This is probably going to be my most stupid question, but were you paying £40,000 for Skype? Everything we do seems to be on Teams. I don't quite understand why this is a
certain company, I think.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we've currently paying for Skype, but we are moving across to Zoom in the coming months. So that will provide a benefit to us in terms of reducing our costs.
Thank you. Councillor Clare?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Page 38, page 52 refers to the slippage to the future High Street project. So the building inflation is far higher than massive inflation elsewhere. What's going on there? Because it's going to, and the problems is what we would promise is going to happen. They're going to cost a lot more, and what can we do about it?
So when we originally put the capital programme in, we profiled when we thought the projects would spend that money. Obviously, within that would be contingency, obviously determining when we would likely to go out to tender. So the tenders for the larger project, which is the Balfour Street development, and also the Queen Street Fair Street car park, we're waiting on the tenders to come back, which should be back this month. So that will determine whether, obviously, that budget is sufficient to cover those works. But there was contingency built into those figures when we originally put the bid in. That obviously means that the large chunk of that spend isn't going to happen until 24, 25. But it will all depend on tenders that come back as to whether that is sufficient to cover those costs. The team are looking at value engineering as much as they can to try and bring those costs down, but until we get the tenders back, we won't know whether that is sufficient to cover the project spend. Yeah.
So, in relation to councillor Caton's question, I think two things I wanted to say. One of them is that I think, colleagues should understand the complexity of dealing with listed buildings, and it's, we've had to go through a longer process in trying to save some of the elements on the facade in Blackwell Street, which has added more time to it than we imagined. The second thing interesting, last week when we were at the board meeting in North Devon Plus, Tim Jones was on talking about the impact of some of these huge national capital programs like Hinkley that have taken a huge amount of capacity out of this sector. So in terms of going out to tender, it is a really tricky job at the moment because there ain't enough firms out there. And I've listened to the news this morning. They've got to do a lot of work to schools. It's not going to get any easier, is it? So I think we've got to brace ourselves that we might have to make some difficult decisions or put our hands in our pockets as well to make sure we deliver this project, Chair.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, sorry, I absolutely understand councillor Ferris's points there, and it is complicated, and I do appreciate with what's going on in schools, it's going to cut down on the number of consultations and availability of various contractors, shall we say. But you referred then to a secondary ideas or plan B. I don't know what the plan B is for around that area, about Broad Street and things. I mean, how would I find that out? Can I give you a document that says what it is?
If there are significant changes to what the original scope of the project was, that would come back to members for approval. So obviously there's only a finite financial envelope in the capital programme that project's working to. If there's minor changes, then obviously that's managed within the project itself. If there are material changes, then that would come back to members. But you will get project updates and the team will come back. We're receiving the tenders at the end of September. So I'd envisage an update report going back to you. Probably won't be in time for the October meeting, but by the November meeting, you should get a project update report that sets out that tender process, what the results are, and where the project is now going with updated timetables.
Brilliant, thanks. Yeah, can I also say that councillor Clayton has got any particular concerns, then by all means speak to Sarah Gaynor, one of the team, and she'll run through where we are with the project, and at that particular time.
I think my main concern is we've said a lot with the council about how this is all going to be beneficial and and then for it to actually not perhaps come to fruition is going to be a bit of a problem on our communication side with the public. And it would be a little bit embarrassing if we're not. We are completely on top of it, but I don't know facts. I see the figures of facts. Speaking of Barnstaple residents and Barnstaple town members as well, and concerned with what's going on in that area, and lack of what's going on, and lack of perhaps communication.
Right. It's fair when you look at what's happened with the planning market, Chair. It's been fairly out for a while.
It has been about a bit. I don't know where you've been, Councillor Clayton, but it has been out there. But
What's happening with
the planning market and
planning market? Yeah, I'm talking about Bagport Street. I'm talking about Winchfield car parks. I'm talking about the rest of where the high street. I'll point to these figures. There's a big slippage there.
Yeah. So there is a press release gone out, I think, asking for tenders for Queen Street. Yeah. Which had gone out in the press. And I think councillors all got an email to that effect.
Yeah. And Chair, I will ask Sarah Jane to contact you, Councillor Clayton. So it may well be that we can sign you up to the regular updates that go out as well. You're not right, sign up for that.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'd just like to mention on that bit, what you were saying, Tony, is that we just need to be aware that every percentage point that we have to pay staff with the pay settlement, I've notified, is about 160,000 on the budget. So just be aware every percentage that we didn't allocate for will be about another 160,000 in the budget, but we've got that adequately in the reserves. So just so that you know that every percentage higher equates with our staff size of about 160,000 on the budget. Right, Nina.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, members. Appendix E sets out our new performance management suite. That's on pages 57 to 66. And these have been developed prior to the new suite of members coming through to ensure that for the first quarter of 23-24, we can start to bring some results forward to you. That's why for some of the measures you'll see there's only actually one result, but over time that will inform our direction of travel, and you'll be able to see it more transparently how our performance is improving. This is a live suite of measures that can be added to or scaled back depending on what performance information members wish to see. So picking up on Councillor Crabb's comments this morning about more measures around the CAT group and bringing those forward. This really is within your gift to tell us as part of the senior management team what you'd like to have reported back to you. So this is a best guess and a starting point. Those key results that are highlighted in this appendix are there to really show the health of our organisation at a really high level, but to give you an opportunity to ask more searching questions into any elements of our business. In addition to that, our internal auditors, Devon Audit Partnership, have commenced an audit on performance management and may wish to speak to members and seek your views also on how you believe we're delivering and reporting to you. The next performance report will provide updates on those 5 programmes as we have previously, as well as the updated suite for Q2, which will give you more of a story around the delivery, picking up on some of those projects and programme results which have also been alluded to give you confidence on the delivery of your corporate plan. And I'm happy to take any questions that I'll either be able to answer now or come back to you later.
Thank you. Anybody got any questions? Councillor Lane?
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, bearing in mind we're looking to improve the planning system, so to speak, and I see on page 60 the regarding minor planning applications, the end-to-end plan, I should say beginning to end, is 113 days. Well, to be honest with you, that's not very good, is it? Because then the normal time for that application should be 56 days, which is half of it. So I think there needs to be some improvement in the planning process there. And the same would apply to major applications, because major applications are 13 weeks, well, that's not 13, 16 weeks, but in a year, 347 days, every 4 months. So I think the main one is the minors, get those out and sorted out, which says it on page 60. But also you've got a number of compliances, which is 2,314 cases. Well, surely, if that's the case, that's the case, you actually should be looking at the amount of cases you've got in front of you and whether some of them should be on the system to start off with, or taken off the system, because it doesn't give a very good appearance to the start with the amount of cases we got, which has not been dealt with.
I think, Councillor Lane, what we wanted to do is provide you with a really honest and transparent report. Before we've always reported those end-to-end times, including extension of times, which we felt blurred our situation. Now we've got recruitment issues in our development management team, which we've got across the land, and it is difficult to fill those posts, the senior planning officers in particular. And I know that the team are working hard to try and fill those positions. But what we wanted to do with our new performance suite was have a real honest, warts and all figures coming towards you, so you understood the issues, and it does enable you to explore those further. So I absolutely take on your point, but those are the end-to-end times and work is being done. In relation to the compliance, again, we've recruited an extremely experienced agency member of staff to try and bring those figures down in our development management team. Again, we've put this figure in here. It's never been in here before, but we realise it's an element of business where we should be doing better and could be doing better. So we're not trying to, morph away from that. There it is on the table. And in addition to that, our new environmental health manager is now in post, also been chipping away at those figures and also trying to recruit to drive those figures down as well.
Chairman, can I just say, I know you just mentioned some stuff, but how are we going to address these concerns to bring it back online, which is should?
Yeah, well, you want to say this, Captain?
Yeah, I mean, as Nina said, there are issues around recruitment in planning, as well as other professional services across the council. We've got some advocs there at the moment, both in terms of enforcement and also in development control. If we can recruit into those posts, then it makes things a lot easier. We're also putting a bid into the fund that the government recently set up, where we can gain access hopefully to a maximum of £100,000, to try and resolve some of the backlog issues. That's not the complete answer, because that'll be £100,000 that we have to spend on agency staff, trying to find the agency staff even to come and work in North Devon and in other planning authorities is really difficult. As Nina said, the whole point of reporting end-to-end times is so that you can see when improvements are made or when there's an issue that needs to be raised. We haven't reported end-to-end times before. We've always reported, the percentage of applications that are dealt with within 8 weeks or whatever it is, plus the time extension. And we do really good at that because we agree time extensions. This is a true figure of where we are with performance. It's the first set of figures that we're producing, so hopefully you will see some improvements. But if you don't, then we can challenge it then and say, okay, why aren't we improving on that? But at this stage, I would say that the main challenges are around getting butts on seats, really. And that's what we're trying to do through the current recruitment process.
Thank you, Chairman.
Chair, I'm sort of on behalf of my group, who, we communicate regularly. There's a good deal of optimism and feeling that Tracy Blackman's doing a pretty good job, and I think that's a message we'll send back to Tracy, because she took on this role in the most difficult of circumstances, and I think she's doing a pretty good job. Can I just, while I've got the floor, Chair, I just wanted to mention too, there's another figure in there that I think is really worth pointing out, and that's our corporate properties, and just say thank you to the property team, because of their flexibility, we're actually filling units all over the town, helping put vitality back into the town centre. So I think that's something worth mentioning too, which augurs well too for Blackwood Street later on. So it does give us confidence that we will find, we'll get the revenue as well, but we'll also fill them with the sort of independent local businesses that I know Alan Bond's been encouraging over these last couple of years. So there is a bit of good news there as well to balance out the challenging news on planning.
Yeah. Councillor Pacino, you keep waving your hand at the back there. I know you're not on the committee. Do you want to quickly say something?
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I just wanted to say, I think that leaving aside any individual number like I'm focused on, I think this is a big step forward, and it gives members, not just you, but members generally, the information that obviously they have previously not had. And I'm sure that what officers want, like Mrs. Lake just mentioned, is input from members about what further information is required, and then so that it can either be found or told it's impossible to find. And that's something that hopefully will come from us, obviously, we hope. But because otherwise it's going to be quite difficult to have people say that in meetings like this, why don't we know about X when nobody's mentioned it before?
Councillor Warden?
Yeah, Councillor Petrina's actually, at the beginning of what he said, has stolen my thunder. I wanted to actually move the recommendations are on page 35, 2.1 to 2.6.
Okay, so we've had a mover. Do I have a second there? Councillor Crabb, all in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. Item 9, Public Services Protection Order, Antisocial Behaviour, pages 69 to 80. Report by Community Protection Officer attached. Welcome.
Good morning. Before I start, can I just bring the committee's attention to a minor error in the report on paragraph. Wait a second. on section 9, constitutional context, sorry. It should read part 3, annex 1, paragraph 1, and not article 4 as it says on my report. And that allows this committee to make a decision itself without referring to full council for final ratification.
Okay, members noted that? Yeah, thank you.
So, the committee will be aware that there's currently public spaces protection orders running in Barnstaple and Ilfracombe, and have provided a map of the areas that are covered by those orders. And they are due to expire in January 2024. This report is designed to allow us to put new public space protection orders in place. That you'll also see that the report includes the conditions of that order, and we want to make sure that there's no place where a public space protection order isn't in place to ensure a seamless transition to our new order. They have to be reviewed and renewed every 3 years. The new order has 2 minor changes to the current order, so it'll be business as usual apart from 2 minor changes. One of them allows for the dispersal of an individual as opposed to a group of people. So there's one person causing trouble in Barnstaple or Ilfracombe town centres in the areas of the public spaces protection order. They can be dispersed away. Currently, it's a group of 2 or more. The other changes are minor changes to, you'll see on the map, where there have been issues over the last 3 years of antisocial behaviour in Rotary Gardens and areas near Port Royal, where officers have been out and seen and addressed antisocial behaviour. So they're sort of additional areas that have been, through experience, deemed to be an issue for the antisocial behaviour officer and police officers. So that's it really. Thank you. I'll welcome questions at this stage.
Councillor Crowe?
I'd be curious as to, I see the definition of authorised person. We remember the police, I'll give you the police constable, police community order, or authorised North Devon District Council officer. I don't know about Barnstaple, but certainly in Ilfracombe, none of those people will do anything that's in this report. I mean, it's farcical in that respect. So what officers are we in charge of that are authorised to undertake this work? I mean, will the new, they will be authorised? Or no?
Yes. So, yeah. So currently, you'd be aware that there are street marshals in Barnstaple.
Yeah.
And they are not currently authorised in the future. There isn't a similar scheme running in Ilfracombe for that to happen, but there may be that there are other people who are out in the community in Ilfracombe, such as street cleaners, that kind of thing, who might be able to be authorised to use these powers to disperse people. That's in transit, I suppose.
Mr. Triggs.
Yeah, just members, Mr. Chair, there's a report later on the agenda about street marshals, which obviously currently up very Barnstaple, a continuation of that, to also incorporate Ilfracombe. So as Tim has alluded to, obviously the street marshals are operating in Ilfracombe and Barnstaple, then we would look for all those powers to be utilized by those officers.
Yeah, they're not currently authorised, but the way that it works now is that any reports that come from street marshals goes directly to the antisocial behaviour officer, who then goes to address the issue in both Barnstaple and Ilfracombe.
So good point raising that, Councillor Crowe. Got a good comprehensive answer there. For the other one. Any other questions? Councillor Baird?
Yeah, I mean, Councillor Crabbe is quite right, actually. There's a lot of stuff going on here, but we don't have the substance of what actually happens in the end. So what I'm saying is, the question is, what are your proposals for reporting back on things for the future, as far as how many people get the £100 fine for not doing what they should be doing and refusing to comply?
Yeah.
Are you proposing that you will be reporting back, say, once this kicks in, that the marshals, particularly in Barnstaple, given the authority, let's say, every couple of months to report
Yes, certainly.
on what's happened.
We certainly can do. We have those figures at the moment, really.
That would be useful. That would be far more useful, I think, to see if it's actually working.
Yeah.
Because it's all right having all that stuff and all the consultation, if at the end of the day, we're not actually taking people, prosecuting them.
Of course, yeah. So,
Can I just say that we are, in one respect, because as leader, I'm often asked for a quote.
Yeah.
And then previously David was asked for quotes, and the previous administration as well, is that, obviously we are reporting and it gets out in the press, trying to deter other people from committing the same offence.
Absolutely.
Normally, under some comments from the public saying you're being too harsh on someone.
I'm talking specifically about dogs here, though, Councillor Room.
Yeah.
So you haven't been given the authority yet, this is what you think about it. You're right in saying that, but the marshals in Barnstaple haven't yet been given the authority.
that's right.
So that's what I'm talking about, not things like drinking and stuff like that. I understand that, and that's been well reported, but particularly on things like dogs, which is central.
So that's the next item, not on this item.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. So, yeah, so this is,
Talking about.
yeah, so this is antisocial behaviour. And as I said, we do have figures of that, and we do have, as Lee said, anecdotal evidence really about how the street monsters are improving life in Barnstaple.
I thought you referred to the marshals in Barnstaple having the authority given to them regarding dogs.
No.
That's something to know about.
Councillor Lee, you would like to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I actually just wanted to thank Ms. Burgess for all this report, and particularly for the inclusion of Fort Marsh Lane, that green down there, which is in my district ward. It is a problem area. Well, I suppose my question is about monitoring to see if including this, if that's what happens, if that then displaces antisocial behaviour further down the cycle track, down towards Freedom Centre and beyond, where we know we've got quite a few people sleeping in the woods, and there are reports of antisocial behaviour difficulties in that area as well.
Yeah. And this is always the issue. The guidance for the antisocial behaviour public spaces protections orders is that they should be as small as possible, really. And inevitably, you're always going to push that issue further out into the fringes of our community, of our geographies. We can only react when we do notice those new hotspots. I mean, it's almost inevitable that it will be displaced somewhere else. And then we will have to react to that. Anyway, I mean, the Freedom Centre and the work that we do in partnership with them, we have an outreach team anyway, who go and talk to those people wherever they are in North Devon, the whole district, and try to address their issues to prevent this kind of these problems before they happen. Unfortunately, we're not always successful, but we will continue to try.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I mean, I must say, thank you for putting Rotary Gardens in as well, because that's a ward, an area that I represent in my district ward. And it does happen from time to time. And like you're saying, disposing it onto other areas. Obviously, we've got that tenanted section down opposite the co-op off St George's Road. So yes, it does happen, but the queries about that have dropped off anyway from the public at some stage.
And I think there's other ways that we can address those areas outside.
Like you said, we've got the outreach team who do a fantastic job,
of course,
working with individuals. So that's good. Chief Exec, Councillor Ken Miles, Mr. Ken Miles.
Yes, yeah. Unelected. I was just going to suggest that we've got the Licensing and Community Safety Committee. So if members are concerned about what impact this has, then say in 6 months' time we can report back to that committee with an update on as to how it's progressed. That would be perfectly reasonable to do, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, David. Thank you, Mr. This is an absolutely fantastic report. Thank you very much, Mr. Bellison. What concerns me is that, of course, Bronson, Councillor Muscal will agree, I think, is currently facing a £4,000 cost because of antisocial behaviour for a single incident that's happened. It's causing a lot of that's a lot of our budget in the parish, and while I recognise that Barnstable and Ilfracombe, by being larger, do have a larger number of problems, but the smaller outlying communities don't have this protection is problematic. I don't know, perhaps the warden has anything to say about South Molton, which has small numbers of problems. They are small and isolated communities, but we do have problems in these.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, there's no question we have reports of both problems in South Molton and other areas as well throughout our district.
Is there?
Sorry.
Thank you. Is there any move to expand the protection so these areas could be included in the future? Well, I recognise that, of course, marshalling and other costs are difficult, but you know, I think policing in Braunton is not always given because we share our sport with Ilfracombe. Policing is often pulled away from where we are. We have less policing, which gives us further problems, and it's an unfortunate situation that we are crammed between two areas that have more problems. But we do have problems of our own, and it would be nice to see those addressed.
Yeah,
I think this is something. This would be a great area, at least if the space orders were on there on certain small parts of Braunton, small parts of Linton. Even though Linton has a small rising problem as well, it would be beneficial.
I think some of it here is about actual reported incidents. So in Barnstable, what directed it right at the very beginning was about the extreme antisocial behaviour that was being undertaken in Barnstable, and then latterly in Ilfracombe. As we said to all the public who report antisocial behaviour to us, is that it's got to be recorded, because we can't go and evidence going out to get an order like this if there's no evidence there, and it's all word of mouth. So please report it, because they'll look back at the statistics, and that's where we then can say, well, actually, we can include this early because there's been 100 incidents or 50 incidents or whatever. But if we haven't got those incidents recorded or a continual time frame as well, isn't it? It's not just over a short period. It could be a long thing. That could have given evidence, Councillor Boss. It'd be really good if you could report that through.
I agree, Chair. Our parish clerk is excellent and does report every incident. At one point for Braunton Recreation Ground, she was reporting incidents on a daily basis. Problems come and go, and currently we have a rising issue in one other green space. But you know, these incidents don't simply go through our social media channels. They do go and they are reported, and we can see these numbers.
Thank you for that. Thanks for that, Councillor. So we've got Councillor Wilkinson and then Councillor Craft.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was adding to Councillor Bell's concerns there. Let's not forget that the coastal villages which I represent, during the summer, we can have as many people on the beach as you've got living in Barnstable.
Yeah.
So, you know, they need to be taken into consideration as well. And I appreciate entirely what you're saying, Chair, about reporting incidents. But that doesn't always happen. But the police presence certainly in the employees negligent.
Obviously, I can't speak for the police, but I guess, I mean, I think it's an ongoing issue, isn't it? Not just in those areas that you mentioned, but in other areas as well, in terms of the police numbers. That'll be their own priority, I presume.
In times gone past, there were residential police officers,
of course,
in the villages with police houses, and police stations. That's gone.
Yeah.
But there's very, very little.
You will remember that during the COVID summer, we had street marshals in Woolacombe and Croyd, I think, and Ilfracombe, to deal with that. The additional people around. I think that probably there are still, you know, it's clear that there's still significant numbers. There are always significant numbers in those areas in the summer, and I think that you know, I think that in terms of antisocial behaviour in those areas, it might be that other antisocial behaviour powers can be enacted and used through our antisocial behaviour officer without the need necessarily for a public spaces protection order.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Just making a point.
Yeah. Councillor Craft?
Just very briefly wanted to reassure Councillor Bell, who sort of intimated that the reason there weren't any police in Broughton is the fact they're all local to him. I assumed that they were all in Broughton.
Maybe West Down is a central.
Right, so members, the recommendation is set out in 2.1 and 2.2. Can we have a mover, please? Councillor Lane, also,
Oh, yeah.
Councillor Lane, seconded Councillor Crabbe, all in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 10. Public Spaces Protection Order Review 2024. Report by Environmental Health Manager. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair, elected members. I also have an apology for my report, which has got a constitutional context amendment needed, which is the same as the previous. It should read Part 3, Annex 1, Paragraph 1, and not Article 4. And this is important, is that the Article 4 is reserved to full council, and this is a decision that SNR committee can make without referring to full council. So that would be good if that could go on the minutes, please. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, just one other thing. I just think, yeah, Superman currently said that this is going to go to the ratification at full council. I mean, of course, it still can if members want, but the constitution doesn't require it to do so. So whether you want to,
So can we amend that then, that this committee can take the decision?
Yeah.
Members happy with that?
You flag that up, didn't you? Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So thank you. So you've agreed that it can just be decision taken by this committee. So
Thank you. So this is a review of the dog control laws contained within the Public Spaces Protection Order. And there was a wide consultation done in 2020, and that's been running along. It's reviewed every 3 years. And so everything you're going to see today is really, the decision is about agreeing to us going out to consultation. So if you see anything you think, oh, I don't like the look of that, please, yeah, obviously interject. But it is about public consultation and our agreement to move ahead with that. So on 1st June 2020, members considered a proposed public consultation exercise and a number of controls designed to address antisocial behaviour and dog controls. It was resolved at full council 25th of November 2020 that the recommendations of SNR committee held on the 13th of November regarding the orders be approved. So that's been running along. We've got to, if we don't get a consultation out there and a new order in place for January 1st, 2024, we won't have any powers, basically. So it's quite important that we try and consolidate this by the end of December. Yeah, I mean, the pages you're looking at, again, just for reference, members, pages 81 to 200, and there's annexes A to E. So fair bit of reading there, a bit of bedtime reading there, but I've got a little presentation which takes us through the basics. So there you go. This is where we test the tech. Nothing so far. We can go for it. Oh, we should do that. No, hang on, that's good. Go on, that's it. If we can click on the link then, please, Beth. Got a little video for you, so hopefully it'll run. I'm going to stand. I think you either hit the start button there or the link you've sent.
I'm just about to congratulate you on doing something different.
I know, yeah, but take a risk, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh dear. It's the link not working. I did have this all on my iPad and I brought Apple TV and everything else worked. It would mirror to this, but the video wouldn't play.
All the work stuff again, no, that's amazing.
What's he doing?
6 o'clock. No, it's not even stuff again. We're there, isn't it?
Yeah, let's. Can you not check the link below and it brings up YouTube? Right, okay. I can show you on my iPad.
Design, storytelling, acting.
I'm talking about the security glitch.
Yeah, let's move on to the next slide. That's a shame. But there you go. We can provide a link to members so you can have a look at this. It's only on YouTube and it's a 9-minute video basically. But some great work done by Suze back here. Thank you, Suze. And it's a shame we couldn't show that.
Yeah.
So this is the first time we tried to play a video. I can't believe that. Ross, can we just move forward, mate? Is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just go through the presentation. Right, so this is kind of what we've got existing. So you can see there are different controls. Dogs on leads were directed, dog bans, and areas where dogs are allowed access, but obviously there's signs everywhere to say you've got to pick up. If I can move this forward. Move forward there, please. And we've got a few new proposals. All right. You're probably aware there's a proliferation of professional dog walkers. Yeah. And no real limits on how many dogs they can handle, how many dogs they can rock up with in a van and just let go. 10 dogs run everywhere and almost impossible to catch all the landmines that those dogs will deposit. So we're looking at proposals which are sort of national proposals really through other councils that have imposed a 6-dog limit, single person. And behind this, we're proposing a voluntary code. No more than 3 dogs off the lead. And dogs on leads in car parks, which kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Why wouldn't you have dogs on leads in a car park? And then maybe an introduction to dogs on leads by an authorised officer, but the lead should be at a certain length. So that's a bit contentious, but again, this is what we're looking at consulting on. We're also looking at a red, amber, green paw system to make it really simple so that you know whether this is a place you can take the dog or whether there's a control there or a complete ban. So that's another issue we're looking at. Plus this voluntary scheme for professional dog walkers. Now, the plan with that is we would start to work with kennels. There is a national voluntary code of practice that we use. We could work with kennels initially that have professional dog walking services, get them to adopt it, and then to bring that into the sphere of the commercial area of professional dog walkers so that it would be a USP if you're a professional dog walker to sign up to this code. And then the hope is it would go wider. So it could even be used by landowners. We could get landowners to sign up to certain controls. Can we have the next slide? So this is the paw scheme. Sorry, no dogs allowed. Red paw, welcome, dogs on leads, what we're directed. So there are some dog controls there, and then dogs welcome to exercise freely, but obviously caveat that then people must pick up. So a little bit more of a description there. Dogs are free to run and play, receptive to immediate control, show additional care and consideration for livestock and nature, respect the sensitivities of others. Amber would be dogs are permitted, if kept on a lead and under control, fixed lead of no more than 2 meters in length, respect the sensitivities of others. And dogs are excluded from the temporary area, from the area. It's worth saying this actually, this may be temporary or permanent. And if we're thinking about dog fouling hotspots, this might be quite useful. We can empower the public. And we, as officers, my officers can quantify, and I'll show you how they do that in a minute, the number of landmines and whether that's reducing with interventions, etc. And it may be that we implement a temporary downgrading of that area, just to send a message to the people that aren't compliant. With other measures, of course, it could be CCTV, it should be over CCTV with signage up, and officers pitching up and catching people not picking up. Next slide, please. But I'm quite excited about this. I think it's a good visual. And this is just another design that we could look for in terms of the signage that goes up. Next slide, please. Again, another very on a theme with the rag theme, So you can see the green there. It's access all areas, dogs welcome, no problem, but no fouling, please. Dogs on lead, dogs excluded. Next one. And we might have paw prints on posts and things. And the nice thing about this, my colleague was saying, and I think this is a great idea, it will allow you to know when you've come into an area that's got a control on it, but also when you exit an area, it's got a control on it. So if there's a walkway that's regularly used, it's a bit like the acorn signs that you see, you can see what zone you're in. Or if there's a particular hotspot along that walk route, that little zone could suddenly become an amber. Next slide. So this is how we identify hotspots. Officers use chalk paint, which they spray around the doggy doo-doo. All right. It's not their job to pick it up. They actually leave it there. But someone's committed an offence there. Am I right in saying it's a potential for £1,000 fine? The fixed penalty initially, isn't it? £100 fine for a fixed penalty. Yeah, but then to be caught for it, you'll be up to £1,000 fine. So £100 fixed penalty for failing to pick up. The great thing about this is that it identifies that the deposit is there and it stops you stepping in it. But it also flags it up as, look, this is wrong. It's, bad owner, name and shame. We can quantify that because we can count it. When we go back next time, we might use red or blue or green chalk paint. So we can show the difference. This just washes away over time. It's not a big deal in terms of, it doesn't look good on the environment, but then neither does dog poo. So we can monitor the sites, which is great. Moving forward, please.
Do you say jump in all the way to the end?
Second.
Just curious as to, you said it's not the officer's job to pick it up, but
we don't.
We're honest with it. It's somebody's job to pick it up.
Our policy is not to pick it up. Yeah. Do you want that clarified then?
No, I want your name so I can put it on Facebook every time someone says it.
Well, we didn't deposit it. Our job is to control it and intervene and to find people, but officers aren't paid to pick up dog food.
It might be picked up through normal street sweeping duties.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But as on pavements like that, little footpaths and stuff, it will be the council's responsibility to go and pick it up.
As a dog owner and declaring an interest, I think what annoys me is people who do pick it up and then they put the bag on a tree.
Or whatever, that's an offence.
And they put it down at the side of the thing, and I think to myself,
yeah,
what's the point of picking it up to be just put in a bag and then just left? you know, I was just thrown in a book.
On the basis that they think they're gonna do a circular on the way back, but it's not acceptable, is it? No.
Councillor,
Can I just say, what sort of message are we sending by putting a line and leaving it there from an authority? Not much of a message, is it? You should highlight, either try to catch, if it's like you've shown 4 places there, you either try to catch the person who's responsible for it, or as part of keeping up then it's safe for that, and pick it up, because quite honestly, it's a mess, isn't it? You don't have to do, I mean, why, you don't, what an example, right? Put a line with it, leave it for an authority, you know?
Yeah, I think councillor Lane, that's, could be all part of the consultation.
Well,
That we say to the public, what do you think about that? What do you think about us leaving it there to name and to shame, but to highlight it? Do you think the council should, do you organise it? Sorry.
I think Ray might.
Yeah, go on, Ray, yeah.
It's actually a nationally recognised approach to utilise not just the notion that there is a deposit there, but to try to build community awareness, try to build community cohesion, to identify who the offenders are. Believe me, as somebody who spends most of their life in areas trying to identify the offenders, it's incredibly difficult. But when you've got natural surveillance from hundreds of dog walkers who utilise that areas on a daily basis, it's much better to engage them. It also has a psychological impact on the perpetrator. You try to change the behaviour, because if they feel like they're being scrutinised, then they're more likely to bring about a behavioural change than when they don't think nobody gives a damn. So it is actually a nationally recognised, very lauded approach, as well as giving us the opportunity to quantify whether or not the interventions that we're putting in place, detection, prosecution, high visibility patrols, CCTV, hotspotting, community newsletters, whatever they might be. But what we need to know is the incidence of offending going down, or do we need to do more? And my experience is that this works hugely in all of those areas.
Thank you, Chair. As a dog walker, I would actually agree with you. I think that the majority of people that I see who allow their dogs to foul aren't doing it intentionally. They're not intentionally not picking it up. They just don't take any notice of their dogs. You get groups of people walking along, having a coffee and a chat, and the dogs are getting everywhere. They don't watch their dogs. And I think they would probably be horrified to come back the next day and see these little orange and green deposits. And it might make them think. So personally, I think it is a good idea. And it does seem to work.
I think that's inherently true, but also it's massively linked to this other notion about whether dogs should be en masse let off lead. I've personally prosecuted dog walkers, professional dog walkers, who let 3 dogs starburst all over Coombe Beach, and she had no idea where they'd gone. And one of them went right over into a corner, crapped on the beach, and she had not a clue. It wasn't that she deliberately allowed the area to be fouled, it's just that she was reckless, in my opinion, but she was prosecuted. But that's partly why we want these additional controls about the number of dogs that anyone can be in charge of, and more importantly, the number of dogs that they can let off the lead at any one time, because you just cannot monitor or scrutinise the behaviour of those dogs or get them back under control quickly enough. If that is the way you go about your job with dogs, and a lot of people are much more responsible than that, and they will be compliant, it's the ones that are not that we need to try to get on top of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Can I just say that a lot of the ideas have come from Ray and the team. They're not my ideas, and they're all based on national experience of PSPOs over the last 3 years and what's working, what's not working. So we're trying to follow best practice, if you like, and be at the vanguard, and good stuff. Okay. Actually, Ray, you want to talk through the code of practice, because it's mainly you that kind of look at that, isn't it? Is that all right?
Yeah. So very, very briefly, as already mentioned, massive proliferation in the number of professional dog walkers, but at the moment it's a totally unregulated area of commercial enterprise. Basically, anyone can do it, and there are no controls. But there are 2 notable bodies. There is a professional dog walkers association, and they have a sort of best practice guide. But they don't have many members because there's no incentive at the moment for anyone to really become a member of that organisation. And the other group is a sort of collaborative between the RSPCA, the PDSA, Dogs Trust and other significant bodies who've formulated a code of conduct for professional dog walkers. But it has to be voluntary at the moment because, as I say, it's totally unregulated. We have formulated our own version of something that pulls together those two different documents and other guidance from DEFRA to give us what we think is a very good foundation for what would be appropriate conduct by professional dog walker in business. And the plan would be, as Darryl said, to include it with our licensing visits, a small number of licensing visits to established kennels and businesses that have a dog walking service attached to them. We could actually make that part of their condition, but it's literally going to be one or two across our district. But if we, having adopted that code of conduct, can then roll that out for a voluntary scheme, which we plan to orchestrate for professional dog walkers to come and affiliate, be accredited by the council, if you like, and there to be some sort of system of us notifying people who are meeting those standards within that voluntary agreement locally. It would give some choice to consumers about who they were choosing to employ. And thirdly, because we've adopted that and it's written into our policies and our practice, but that's the standard, it would give local landowners like Christie's, for example, the opportunity to license professional dog walkers who are accessing their land, like Royalton Boroughs, for example, to moderate the number of people who can go out there en masse. Sandy Lane car park, for example, will have maybe 200-300 dogs there every morning, every afternoon, popping out with vans that are being brought there 10, 12 at a time, and they're just running all over the boroughs currently. We wouldn't be able to impose much control on that ourselves, but the landowner could as part of this graduated approach. So that's what it fundamentally comes down to.
So members, you've got on pages 82 recommendations. And therefore, can I ask you to read those recommendations given our earlier?
I just thought, perhaps it would be best that it was brought back to this committee on the 2nd of November, so perhaps the last line of could really be brought back to this committee on the 6th of November. 2023, I mean, because the alternative is you could give the delegated authority to, like in the previous item 9, but it's just that this seems quite sort of up in the air a bit. So it might be better because the previous one had a particular order draft.
So shall we? So the recommendation is that they'll go out to consultation, yes, and then bring it back to this committee to ratify the decision after we've got the information required from that consultation. Yes.
Very good. Yeah.
Is that okay, Linda?
Yeah.
So can we have a proposal?
Certainly, I'll propose that, although I'm not a dog walker myself.
So it's been proposed, Councillor Wilkinson, seconded, Councillor Warden, all in favour? Thank you very much.
See you in November.
Item 11, formation of community lottery for North Devon. Report by the Director of Resources and Deputy Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this report sets out a proposal to set up a local lottery for North Devon that would offer a new valuable income stream for local voluntary and community organisations. Pleased to have with us via the teams Karen O'Neill, who's an external lottery manager from Gatherman, who we are proposing to use for the setting up of this lottery as management of it. I'll present the report first. Karen is here to answer any further questions that members may have, and also present a short presentation if members so wish. So I'll just cover off the main points of the report. As members are aware, we know we're going to experience some future budget pressures. We currently pay out to strategic and voluntary organisations, and those grant provisions are within the budget. We don't know what those future budgets may or may not look like. They haven't increased for a number of years, and obviously costs for these organisations have increased. So the introduction of a local authority lottery does present an opportunity for local voluntary and community organisations to increase their revenue stream. And the benefit being that money raised locally actually goes to local causes, compared to some of the national schemes where only a small percentage goes to those organisations. This report proposes to deliver up to 60% of the lottery proceeds to those good causes, whereas compared to national schemes, those figures are nearer the 20% of proceeds. So there are three options for members to consider. First option is not to establish a lottery in the first place. There are obviously associated risks with setting up the lottery. These are essentially around financial risk and reputational risk. But the report and the contents I'll run through shortly seek to demonstrate those risks are minimal and significantly mitigated in the proposal that we're presenting to you today. The second option is we could run this lottery in-house. This option would involve having to create a number of new posts in the authority and significantly cost a substantial amount of money that would then eat into the benefits, obviously, of running the lottery. It's estimated that the costs would be somewhere in the region of around £80,000 to £100,000 for set-up costs and ongoing costs alone. The financial risk, if the lottery wasn't successful, would therefore be borne by the council. So there's a significant risk if we set up a lottery in-house. The third option, and the option that we're proposing, is to appoint an external lottery manager. That would involve a contractual arrangement with an existing provider of community lotteries, of which there aren't that many. And it would be buying in those skills and passing the financial risk on to the provider. The external lottery manager would deliver all the aspects of running the lottery, from ticket sales, revenue collection, prize management, and also the licensing arrangements, and share with us, the council, and also the good causes, the responsibility for launching and ongoing marketing of the scheme. So reflecting on those three options, it's proposed to members that an external lottery manager is used to oversee the operation of the local lottery. Research has shown there's very few external lottery managers in the marketplace, and Gatherwell, who we have with us today, are specialists in delivering local authority lotteries and currently provide that service for around 140 local authorities throughout the country. One of our neighbouring councils, Timbridge, recently set up that community lottery. They carried out part of their research and looked at other external lottery managers. A number of them only deal with charities, some only run with sports clubs, and none cover the wider range of voluntary and community organisations that we would want to see in North Devon. So that's why Gatherwell have been successful in obtaining around 140 local authorities with their schemes. In terms of the local schemes and good causes wishing to join the lottery, these would need to be assessed, and it sets out in section 4.10 of your report. It's proposed that they must either be a registered charity, a constituted group, or a registered community interest company or charitable incorporated organisation. And in order to join the lottery, they should be providing services that directly benefit people within North Devon, be independently established for charitable, benevolent or philanthropic purposes, I can pronounce it, have a constitution or set of rules setting out its aims and objectives, operate a bank or building society account in its own name, requiring at least 2 unrelated signatories, with no undue restrictions on the membership. It's proposed that we shouldn't accept applications from organisations that do not provide services within the boundaries of North Devon, have no established management committee or board of trustees, unless a CIC or a CIO, aim to make and distribute a profit, promote particular political or religious beliefs, only benefit individuals, or submit an incomplete application. So there are set criteria that we would want to put in place for the administration of the lottery and accepting of those local good causes. We appointed an external lottery manager such as Gatherwell. They would set up a new website and manage the publicity and recruitment of the good causes to the platform. And the local authorities would have significant impact into the branding, marketing and the launch of such a lottery, even to the extent of naming the lottery. In terms of ticket sales administrations, these would be administered by the lottery manager, and participants would be expected to set up a monthly direct debit. Ticket sales aren't sold in shops, offices or on the streets, and the external lottery manager would be responsible for the payment of such prizes and distributions of the proceeds to the local good causes and an element back to the council. Each ticket of the lottery costs £1 and the proceeds are distributed as follows. 50% of the proceeds go directly to the good causes and they are specified by the individual lottery players. So when they go on to choose and buy their lottery ticket, they can choose whichever of the good causes they wish their donation to go to. 10% of proceeds would be paid to a central fund that's held by the council, and that would cover some of the annual licence costs. But the majority of those costs are minimal, and therefore one opportunity is to reinvest the majority of that fund back into the local community. 20% of the proceeds would go towards prize money for the participants, and then 20% is paid to the external lottery manager, of which 3% of that represents VAT, which as a council we could reclaim and add that back to the central fund, actually increasing that central fund further so that local good causes benefit over 60%. As I've said, the percentage of ticket sales currently for some of the national schemes, such as the National Lottery, that go back to local causes or good causes, is around 28% for the National Lottery. Health Lottery is lower at 20%, and the Postcode Lottery is 27.5%. What we're proposing as part of the local community lottery here is that around 60% would go back to local good causes. The lottery is based on a different principle to the UK Lotto, and it used the results of the Australian Super 66, which is a combination lottery that uses only numbers 0 to 9, which are then randomly drawn by a computer. Those results are drawn weekly on Saturday morning, UK time, and players are able to choose those 6 numbers, and to win the weekly jackpot, they must match both the numbers and sequence as drawn. Players can also win a prize if the ticket matches the sequence of the first or last 2, 3, 4, or 5 numbers drawn. Players also have the option to donate their winnings to the chosen good cause if they wish to, and around 10% of the winners compared to other local authority lotteries have done that. Section 4.19 of your report just sets out the winning odds, which compared to some of the national schemes are obviously a lot lower. The process of setting up the local authority lottery takes around 6 months from the date of agreement to approval by the Gambling Commission. So even if approval was given today, we'd be looking at around the early part of next year in terms of the lottery going live. As I've said, the proposed approach will enable charities and good causes to sign up to take part in the lottery, with 50% of ticket sales going directly to those good causes. The council would be the overall licence holder and control the good causes joining the scheme. The lottery itself is considered to be low risk in terms of the emergence of problem gambling, and this is due to its relatively controlled form. The lottery will help mitigate many of the issues that are related to addictive gambling by only being able to be pre-arranged in terms of sign-up, a maximum of only 20 tickets per supporter. There's no instant reward. The promotion of the lottery mainly via the good causes to the supporters, and the lottery will be fully compliant with the Gambling Commission's licensing code of practice, which includes self-exclusion and links with support organisations. In order to comply with the licensing requirements, it's proposed the authority to apply for any operating licences on behalf of the council be delegated to both the Chief Executive and myself as Chief Financial Officer. And it's proposed that both the Chief Executive and myself be nominated as the personal management licence holders for the lottery and be given the authority to apply for such a licence. The external lottery manager, as I've said, will oversee all aspects of the lottery. They provide a bespoke website, which works across all devices and is secure. Alongside this, there's a dedicated local telephone number and an email address for support. Professional marketing materials. They also manage the payments and administer the payments for winners and the good causes payments administration. And they run a client deposit account ensuring that all supporters' money is held safely and there's no risk to council covering the prize winnings. There are, of course, risks associated with establishing a lottery, such as the voluntary and community sector choosing not to engage with the initiative, the lottery not performing as well as expected and not producing the anticipated levels of income, and that the prize awards exceeding those predicted. These risks have not been realised in other council-operated lotteries, and we consider they are outweighed by the potential to generate such a new funding source for local voluntary and community organisations. The worst-case scenario for the council would be that the initial start-up costs are effectively written off on shortly. Finally, the top prizes are insured by the external lottery manager and is funded from the prize fund, which itself is funded from the share of the ticket sales. the council is not exposed to any prize fund risk due to the contract it will hold with the external lottery manager. In terms of initial setup costs, there is a setup fee of £5,000 with the external lottery manager, licence fees and affiliations of just over £1,100, and a budget for a launch event which we've set aside of around £1,000. So we'll be looking for initial setup costs of around £7,200. And it's proposed that these initial costs, if members approve the setting up the lottery, will be funded from the strategic contingency reserve, which has got a healthy budget currently. Once launched, the ongoing costs will be met from the central fund retained by the council, so there'll be no ongoing costs out of the revenue budget. The table in 5.3 just sets out an estimated level of funds that would come back in terms of good causes, and based on other authority lotteries that have been set up on their populations, between 0.5% and 1% of the population potentially could generate between 23,000 and 46,000 with a 50% share that would go back to good causes, with the central fund between 5,000 and 9,000. If the lottery grows, that figure could obviously increase significantly. Yeah, that covers the main headlines of the lottery. The recommendations are in sections 2.111 to 2.117 on pages 201 and 202. Happy to take any questions, and as I said at the outset, I have Carol O'Neill from Gatherwell present and on Teams to answer any further questions that members may have.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Chair. I just said, all seems a very good idea, no problem at all. The only thing that did occur to me is this 17% plus VAT? Do you stick with that, or have other authorities had to pay more when the contract's renewed?
Okay, so with the breakdown of the costs and as far as the contract, I know in the initial report John had mentioned that this would be looked at for a 1-year basis and it'd be reviewed. Those figures wouldn't actually change, so they are set. So you have your initial 60%, which always our commitment is that would go back to good causes. That has been established for the last 15 years. We've never actually moved away from that. Your actual setup costs at the moment, they have just changed recently. I mean, it's marginal. It's about 18.6% of the actual setup costs, basically for managing the website. They have not changed, and they will be written into the contract as well. So if there was any increase in cost in the future, it would be something that would be negotiated with yourselves, or we would make you aware of. We haven't had to actually make any adjustment, even through sort of more difficult times, COVID. We've always kept our costs set and fixed. And then your prize fund costs, again, they come in at a little, I think it's a little under 19%, and the difference being your VAT that you're going to claim back.
Thank you.
So,
well, first of all, I think it's very sad that a local authority is having to spend opposite time and money looking at the pros and cons of running a lottery. We should be effectively better funded by central government, and I think it's a crying shame that local authorities are having to contemplate this. But I recognise that we can't do much about that, and we're going to have to perhaps look at things like this in the future. I think it's very sad. But I would like to know if any time has been looked at. I don't know. Does North Devon Hospice run a lottery? Do other local charities run a lottery that perhaps we might be impinging on? Because I think that would be a very wrong approach if there were, because we would obviously be taking money away from those. Well, possibly. Gambling issue is a big thing. This is gambling at the end of the day. However limited, it is a gambling exercise, and you're promoting it. And we've just been talking about social disorder in our streets. A lot of that is caused by addictions, and gambling is an addiction. So there are issues about this. It's great that we can, give ourselves a pat on the back and say, yeah, we're bringing all this money. We shouldn't be able to use lottery then to do that. there's something smelled bad in all that. And having said that, I'm not going to vote against it necessarily because I recognise that it could bring money in. So there are problems.
I'll just come back on clarification. So I will declare an interest now in having charity experience of setting up lotteries is what this is doing is putting the risk of running a lottery to the external lottery manager, ultimately with the council's responsibility. But what it enables is those smaller charities who can't have a lottery themselves, such as this. Right. So North Devon Hospice have got their own bespoke lottery, and the Children's Hospice have. But the smaller charities, like could be Bell's Place in Ilfracombe or whatever, members of the public who then have a free choice, just like they have a free choice of walking into the co-op and buying a lottery ticket or not. And the Licensing Act is very strict on self-exclusion. So if people have a gambling problem, they can be self-excluded. And that's all within the policies of this. And what it does, it ultimately is those smaller charities can have a leaflet maybe in their charity reception area that says join our lottery. So for every £1 that somebody spends, they'll get 50p of that without having to take on the resources of staff and all that. We won't have to take staff on at all. It's all done by the administration costs within the external lottery managers. And the thing is, it's for a year and that's to give it a try, because I think the biggest key here is on promotion of it. So it needs promoting to those organisations who might only have one person in a charity or 2 or 3 persons in a charity who haven't got any time to do this. But there are people out there that will take part in this activity. And yes, gambling is a problem that we've got to be aware of, but there are strict rules with the Gambling Commission that we have to follow and adhere to. But it's all about people's choice. People have the choice if they want to or not. And I think really the enabling people to have that choice is a good idea. I mean, that's what I'd say. Councillor Walker?
Yeah, I would just like to say, from the point of view of somebody who has been involved in charities, when you're smaller, particularly smaller charities, when you're trying to fundraise for a project or anything like that, if you're having to try and apply to things like national lottery, you almost need to employ somebody to do it here. It is an absolute mind-bending application process. And it's been a good way for the smaller, very well used local charities to be able to raise a little bit of money. And I don't think it would really impact sort of the hospice lottery. I mean, people who play the hospice lotteries will carry on playing the hospice lotteries. I think the people this might attract is people who think, well, yeah, I can support littler things. I might leave a few pounds myself.
It's the person's choice, isn't it? Whether they put the £1 in that tin or the £1 in that tin, whether they affiliate themselves with whatever organisation. Plus, like I said, sports clubs and things like that, we're registered and stuff, which is really good. I've got Mr. Miles and then Councillor Cram.
So the only point I was going to make was, I'm not sure whether this is misunderstood or not, but this it's not about raising money for the council's funds. This is about raising money for charities, small charities, as the leader has said, out there in our community. So we're just facilitating that, if you like. It's not about supplementing the council budget at all.
Just say that the members reminded, I mean, historically, you've had the Rotary Mega Draw, which has adopted like a fairly similar role, but like it's a physical ticket in the community. Well, that is no more. The people that ran Mega Draw have sort of got older and decided they can't do it anymore. So this, I can see this filling a similar roles, exactly that. If you went to Rotary and said, can you give us £1,000 for a wheelchair or something? They say, no, here's £1,000 for the tickets, you sell them, but we'll take care of everything else. We'll give the prizes in the draw. So I can see this taking a similar role.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's roughly, hospice raises roughly £500,000. Lottery, I think it's a little bit less than that. My concern with the answer, Councillor Walker. It is not the existing hospice players who might then go on and split and do two things. It is the new hospice players. The hospice offers you a whopping, and I think £5 win once every year or so is what I get from the hospice. I think you can win up to £100. It is fairly pathetic. No disrespect to the hospice, of course, when compared to the £25,000. If I was a new player, I do not think I'd be supporting the hospice. I would support hospice. I'd rather hospice still, but there is a balance to be met here. While I agree that it will be raising a lot of money for very small charities, that is audible. I think it should be operated, if it was to be operated and people are minded to go with this. I do think it should be operated not as something that's promoted or part of North Devon Council, though it would be run by North Devon Council. I think given, saying that this is something that is supported by councillors, kind of falls back from our moral responsibility to lead the area morally. It does say that there is a minimal risk of, I'm so sorry for my.
Councillor Bell's got tonsillitis. The answer.
So sorry for what I'm speaking today. While there is a minimal risk of furthering gambling addiction, and that does reduce the bar into gambling and potentially into gambling addiction. There is minimal risk with many things. Gun ownership has a minimal risk of creating gun crime. Drunk driving has a minimal risk of creating accidents. Those risks exist and we do mitigate them. This has a minimal risk of creating gambling addiction, but it will create some, which is unfortunate. I just think that this is something that where we should support, we should not be putting North Devon Council's name on it.
Mr. Triggs.
Well, just on that gambling point, and I wonder whether it'd be useful to bring Carolyn at this point, because the company have had experience of running lotteries in 140 local authorities, and I suspect 140 local authorities have had a similar concern about, is this promoting gambling? And I would suspect it's something that they've all sought to address through the way they promote the lottery, making sure that it's clear that it is for good causes.
Am I okay to just add a quick point? Thanks for mentioning that, Ken. I completely appreciate all the points being raised, and the main point that is always number one is the gambling issue when we speak with local authorities. Completely understand that all of the sort of market research and all of the work we do with the Gambling Commission, it does come back as a very low risk product, which is usually classed as incentivised giving. We work with 14,000 actual individual good causes currently. So all of those good causes are your local charities that as you quite rightly said, wouldn't have the opportunity to have this kind of exposure or to send this out to supporters. They take on the marketing aspect. They get their own project manager, so we work alongside them, and they are targeting their own supporters. So people that have been touched by homeless shelters, or the children might have be involved in the local football team. So the supporters that they're actually reaching out to wouldn't usually, they're engaging from a support point of view. I don't think they tend to find supporters that are engaging just from a prize giving. To win. I'm sure there will be some at some point across the board, but they're usually marketing directly to the people that are involved with their actual good cause in the first place. I understand there is risk with everything, like the points raised with gun ownership, but there's also an incredible amount of benefit that comes to these local good causes, mainly from a monthly revenue point of view, because all lottery payments are made monthly, and with a lot of our local good causes, it's kept the lights on after COVID, because there aren't any ring fencing as to what that money goes to, so it can just be sort of keeping the doors open.
Yeah. Right, so
I want to say, I don't know, John. Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. It was just to come back on the point about sort of the council branding, etc., and just to reassure members that we're not going to plaster North Devon Council logos over everything to do, as Carol's pointed out, a lot of the local good causes will do the marketing themselves. The lottery itself, the proposal will be called North Devon Lottery for Communities, so it hasn't got the council name in it. Yes, it can have the council name in terms of the licence holders, but aside from that, it'll be down to the local good causes to do their marketing for the lottery, and for it to run itself through Gatherwell. So the council never won't go us pushing it out there. We'll be pushing the lottery, but obviously we're not going to be pushing it out in North Devon Council's name.
Yeah.
And I think the lotteries that are out there already, I think if people are buying lottery tickets plus the hospice, they have the hospice at their heart, and I think will do so anyway, regardless whether they're new or existing clients. I think this is more aimed at those smaller charitable voluntary organisations that will then benefit from an income stream that maybe they've not been able to find.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Lever.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much indeed, John, for noting in your report about any funds being raised going to charities that operate in North Devon. As a between little point, we know that there are some charities and organisations that operate or are known enough to show that they can operate in North Devon. But I would ask that the tiny tweak to that is that if there's for operations in North Devon, not necessarily just by charities or organisations that in North Devon.
Councillor Warner.
Yeah, I share a lot of what Councillor Clayton said at the very beginning. I'm not in favour of lotteries, never have been. It's part of my religious beliefs, so I'm afraid I won't be supporting this. I'm not sure that a council should have anything to do with lotteries. That's my personal opinion, so I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that.
Right, so we go to the vote then. The recommendations in 2111 to 2117 in the report on pages 201 and 202. Do we have someone who will move the recommendation? Everybody second that? Seconded. All those in favour? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Any against? 2. Any abstentions? 1. So that is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Item 12, proposed amendments to the council's existing amenity standards with respect.
Can I just take the point, Chair? Order. I think there's 3 options you could buy into. Now, am I assuming that you've gone for the first option because there's 3 options?
Right, okay,
Yeah, that's what I was trying to.
Right, okay, shall we go back to this board?
Chair, just to be clear, so obviously there were 3 options in the report. One was to do nothing. Second option was to do something ourselves in-house. And the third option was to appoint the external lottery.
The third option.
You need to make that clear.
The recommendations in the report, 2111 agrees to the establishment of the lottery. 2112 approves the appointment of Gatherwell as the external lottery manager to run the operational side of the lottery. And then it goes on to agreeing the criteria and authorising Ken and myself to be the licence holder. So the first 2 points agrees to establishment of the lottery and to appoint Gatherwell as the external lottery manager.
Thank you. Yeah, you got that. Proposed, so item 12 then, proposed amendments to the council's existing community standards with respect of short-term holding letting and of licensed HMOs, pages 215 to 242, report by Public Protection Manager.
Morning. I'm going to hand over to Tanisha, who's comprised a large part of the report, and she'll provide the detail of that. Okay.
Yeah, so my name is Tanisha Raza, and I'm environmental health practitioner specialising in residential licence on behalf of the council. And today considerations sought in respect of proposed amendment to the council's amenity standard document, in particular in respect of short-term holiday lettings of rooms within licensed HMOs. The popularity of short-term lettings for holiday purposes of domestic dwellings has increased, particularly in the area of North Devon, as I'm sure you're all aware. At the moment, there's an estimated 1,100 HMOs in North Devon, of which approximately 294 under the mandatory licensing scheme. And at June 2023, there were approximately 1,867 business rated properties with a description containing self and catering holiday units. And as a result of this, we received a recent inquiry from an agent whereby they approached the council to ask if there were any restrictions in relation to landlords renting out individual rooms within licensed HMOs on a holiday let basis. As a landlord had approached them, asking if they could rent out their property in that way. We reviewed this request, however, we had a number of concerns relating to health, well-being and public safety. Although at present, this is not a matter specifically covered under the current amenity standards document, which was previously approved last year at Strategy and Resources Committee meeting. In light of this, a single amendment is proposed, which can be found in Appendix A. And in short, it is proposed that we do not permit rooms within licensed properties to be rented out on a holiday let basis, for example, via Airbnb or Vrbo. And all of accommodations are occupied by persons as their only or main residence, or by persons who are to be treated as so occupying them. So this is in line with Section 259 of the Housing Act 2004. However, before this is implemented, we feel it's appropriate to consult external stakeholders on this proposed amendment. So it is proposed that a 6-week consultation exercise is undertaken in line with Cabinet Office guidance. In line with this, it is recommended that Strategy and Resources Committee consider the proposed variation found in Appendix A and instruct myself to undertake a 6-week period of public consultation on the proposed amendment and seek that consultation responses be reported to a future committee meeting prior to the implementation of any approval. We feel this is important as it increases the robustness of the council's approach and procedures in respect of HMOs and also provides further clarity to landlords and letting agents going forward. That's for today. Thank you for your time and I welcome any questions you may.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson.
Yeah, I read the report. Thank you for the report. I have serious concerns about this in light of the fact that we've got, you know, a big homelessness problem. This, in my cynicism, is just going to increase the homelessness. It's going to take away, not even affordable, because some of these HMOs aren't affordable, in fairness, but it's going to take away an avenue for people that can't afford to go onto the property ladder. I appreciate you going up to consultation, but I know that consultation with estate agents and various agencies that are doing HMOs anyway. There's no consultation being made with housing associations. There's no consultation being made with the homeless people around. And I really do have genuine concerns. I know in our, well, it's not just in the coastal strip, but in the whole of North Devon, we're looking at a massive second home holiday let proportion compared to people that afford to buy, and this is just going to exacerbate. So yeah. I cannot go with it at all, I'm afraid.
No, it's fine.
Prevent it. Do the opposite. It's the opposite.
Sorry?
It's trying to prevent it.
How can it prevent it? The HMOs will look and say, oh, I can get Airbnbs on it. I mean, it's got to stay that way. The consultation is going out, so I will stand corrected.
Chair, for me, the consultation that's going out is on an amendment to our current conditions, if you like, which will prevent, what we're suggesting is that it will prevent the use of rooms in HMOs to be used for Airbnbs and holiday
In
let.
that case, I do apologise.
No, that's okay.
In that case, I applaud them. It is a massive concern.
No, thank you.
If it goes that way, then you're just going to make so many.
And obviously we will, we're happy to consult other agencies as well.
I think they ought to be involved.
Yeah, we're happy to.
So, Councillor Wilkinson, just for clarification, I thought I'd read this report totally wrong when you were, it's doing the actual opposite. So in other words, so just for clarification for anybody listening.
Blood in my eyes.
Yeah. I don't want you, I actually don't what you meant. But the situation is that we're going out for consultation to ensure that we preserve rooms in HMOs for local people to rent and let, rather than for
those people that have got HMOs to part rent some of those rooms as an Airbnb or any other letting means going forward. In other words, it's protecting the housing stock that we've got already so that it can be used potentially just for local people or people living and working here.
Can we include on that consultation, please, as a request of the housing associations and other owners and owners?
Yeah, we will take, happy to take that on board. Yeah. Anybody else? Councillor Bell?
Thank you. I had hoped to sit quietly today. So I do not think we should have a consultation at all. This is a fairly shut and dry. These HMOs should not be converted to holiday lets. We shouldn't be asking people whether it should or not. There should be a simple council decision. I can't see the reason. This is an excellent report. Thank you. But I cannot see the reason for consulting the public on this matter. It should just simply be with the state as it is. We do not allow HMOs to be used. They are HMOs. They should not be used as holiday lets. My biggest concern is creating a consultation as we've seen with the holiday lets, where we've spoken about consultations and spoken about licensing schemes, it creates a fire sale. We are going if we start telling HMOs that this is going to start happening and they won't be able to do it, we are going to see the closure of HMOs as people simply, with no licensing scheme in place for short-term lets, as we still have to cope with. We are going to see the closure of these HMOs as people decide to simply convert them to short-term holiday lets instead. I think the current situation where HMOs are used as HMOs and holiday lets exist is satisfactory. We simply should be putting in place that HMOs are not holiday lets and should not be used as such. A consultation, I think, will simply create a situation where people decide to shut up their HMOs because they don't like it, and they will start pulling out. They'll start pulling. We'll have less HMOs by creating this consultation. Officer,
Councillor Pratt, you say good practice.
No, well, I'm looking to the lawyers and the chief executive. I think it's really difficult to change something that's gone out to public consultation before without going back out to amend it. I tend to agree with Brent. I mean, for me, the sooner we can do this, the better. Do we need to do 6 weeks or can we do 3 weeks if we actually target the right consultees so we can get it in brain within a month or so?
Yes.
There's no legal requirement to consult in terms of the policy, but obviously with ECHO, the concerns in terms of that, we have consulted on the document prior. In licensing, other areas, so the Licensing Act 2003, Gambling Act 2005, we have similar policies, and with an annual policy, we've always chosen to consult in a couple of those areas. It's a statutory consultation, it's embedded within the legislation. Take, for example, the Licensing Act, which prescribes who we consult. It's very prescriptive. This doesn't go into that level of detail. However, because we consult in a similar nature, perhaps it'd be questionable. I know I've been to a masterclass with Philip Colvin, one of the eminent licensing QCs, and in his words, to not consult, policy as a sham. That was his word and something. So I think, it is prudent for us to consult on these types of policies, but nonetheless, there isn't a legislative requirement, and someone might say that otherwise, but I think it allows for an element of transparency, but the Cabinet Office doesn't say exactly when it's a risk assessment in terms of the period. Is there a shorter period? If members believe it's fairly cut and dry, it could be tolerated, and we could perhaps half it. If members are very keen to get something in place quickly. Interestingly, in terms of the response from the agent concerned, we haven't had very many queries pertaining to this. It's the first time that this query has come about. So I don't know. It's obviously difficult for the figures we've got. How many rooms in our HMO would be available? So that's something that we're not aware. We don't have that data.
Councillor Clare.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, there's no precedent here. I think it's a matter for the council sometimes to show leadership and lead by example. And this is something that is so strongly felt across North Devon. The depth of feeling, I think all councils would agree that there's something that's got to be done against this. And why consult when we know what we want to do? Just let's do it. there's no legal necessity to actually consult on this, so I think it was sure to the local media, sure to local owners, it was sure to local homeless people that we need business on this. Let's just do it.
I would urge a little bit of caution because, as Katie said, there's nothing set down in the statute that says you have to consult on this particular thing. But generally, as a matter of public law, if you like, if the public body is changing policy, then there is a general expectation in the public that there will be a consultation before that change takes place. And if you move too quick, if you like, you don't consult the public on certain things, then that can give rise to challenge. And there's plenty of cases that have gone through the courts over the years where a policy that's been introduced by a council that hasn't been consulted on adequately has been challenged. Now, if members are adamant that they don't want to consult, but they want to go straight ahead with this, then I'd suggest that another report come back with those implications being set out to members. I think it's wise to consult. We're talking about a 6-week period. We're showing leadership by going out, making those changes and consulting on them.
If I could just come back on that, I mean, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think it's really important that we do consult, and it is six weeks, because in 3 weeks, a lot of people won't respond, and you won't get a proper report coming back to this council. We will then have the evidence to go with what we all want. I mean, we do know what we want, but let's go out and consult the public, bring it back, and we won't get the legal challenges or all the rest of it afterwards because we've done it properly.
So to summarise, if you went straight ahead now, you'd have to wait for the next SNR for a report to come back, which would eat into this 6 weeks of the consultation anyway. So we might as well just go ahead, in my view, with a 6-week consultation, show open and transparency, and show that we're a council that listens to people's views, because people might have different views to what we have, and they need to be taken into consideration. And by that time, we're not saving any more time really in respect of that.
Furthermore, it would be prudent to highlight that in the HMOs that are licensed that may well have let rooms on a holiday let basis, they would need to have some kind of leading, particularly if they had letters that, you know, they would need to honour, and there may be some financial penalty, and they may well wish to provide detail if that's over the consultation.
So yes, you all heard that. Councillor Bell, last one, and then we'll.
Thank you. And I would say again, I did, as I said in July, you know, I grew up in a guest house for a large chunk of my childhood. It was hell in the summer months where we would have to change rooms just because we'd have people then coming in who were on their holidays. And we did not know, as I know your report really points out, we did not know who those people were. This was the 80s and probably a kinder time, but I would be very much afraid when you've got vulnerable, low-paid people living in these HMOs that they would then be expected to accommodate people that you do not know but may well be coming home drunk on a Friday night because they're on their hollybobs. And those people have worked, the other people who live there have to work there. So I want to come back and just say, we're not really, these HMOs are HMOs. They are defined as HMOs at the moment. They are not defined as holiday lets. We're not making a big change to law. We are simply clarifying that an HMO is a house of multiple occupancy. We're not saying this is an HMO. They're currently meant to be used as HMOs. They're not supposed to be used as holiday lets. So I don't think, again, I'm very much against the idea of consultation, and I would not be normally against the idea of a consultation on anything. I am worried that it will. I'm worried that it will create the conversation amongst HMO owners, and they will decide to just pull out of that industry so they can be used as holiday lets. They're currently HMOs, they should continue to be HMOs, and I think we're not changing the law here, we are clarifying that this is the case. We're just simply amending the wording slightly, and I think that's why, again, I feel this shouldn't.
Yeah, I propose the motion as written, and then Councillor Bell can propose an amendment.
Yeah, I'll have to second a motion.
Yeah. what you've got to understand as well is that these people may have already got holiday lets using the HMO, and people have got holidays booked. And by going out to consultation, we're giving them enough time to sort that out, because we don't want them to be used as holiday lets. But they may, and we effectively, the decision would be that we've gone out to consultation, we've got the results, we've considered all the facts. I don't know the legalities unless you do, Councillor Bell, by what decision we're going to make today, what implications legally that will have on the council. I'm not aware, because officers have researched that for me. So, Councillor Crabbe, you are proposing.
Proposing as written.
Second.
Are you on to do amendment?
I would like to amend to say not to have the consultation.
So, are we going to do this?
Be the second.
I'll do a second for that. Second. Right. We'll take the amendment first.
Yes.
All those in favour of the amendment?
1, 2.
Any against? That's the rest of the future. Any abstentions? No, that was it. Right, now the substantive.
Go the other way now.
Now the substantive one, proposed by Councillor Crabbe, seconded by Councillor Warden. All in favour that we go out to public consultation as set out in the recommendations on agenda 12. Yeah. Any against? Any abstained? Just one against. Thank you very much. Item 13, section 106 report, pages 243 to 246. Report by Head of Environmental Enhancement. Thank you, Mr. Kentel, for coming along, sitting patiently.
Thank you, Chair. Well, hopefully this is a very straightforward report. This is just a report requesting allocation of section 106 public open space funds to 2 schemes in Framington, in the Framington ward. So the recommendation of the report is that Strategy Resources Committee allocate £55,215 to Framington Parish Council for the replacement of play equipment at Ellerslie Road. And the second recommendation, or 2.3, is for £39,868 allocated to Framington Parish Council towards the replacement of play equipment at Beachfield. And then subject to those aforementioned recommendations, the Strategy and Resources Committee variable capital programme by £95,083, and funds are released subject to a funding agreement upon such terms and conditions as may be agreed by the senior solicitor for external projects.
Councillor Warden.
Happy to move.
Thank you. Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Warden.
I just wanted to say something about can I say thank you very much to Mark for actually managing to get these things. I just want to say that actually Ellerslie Road Mayor is given some ward, not Framington ward, but that's minor. And can I also thank in advance the committee on behalf of the children of Civic Park, particularly Woodville and South, for what will be an amazing new development, which will be accessible to all, which was really important because this has been done in conjunction with Civic Park School, and it was very important to Civic Park School Council that everybody should be able to use the play area.
Lovely, thank you. Yeah. So it's been proposed. A seconder off the floor. Councillor Maskell, all in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. I hope that they enjoy the play equipment.
You too. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Item 14, Street Marshal Scheme, pages 247 to 254, joint report by Place Manager Town Centre, Chief Executive.
Thank you. Sadly, not a joint presentation. The place manager is still on holiday, so I can take this one, Chair.
So just you.
Yes, me, Chair. Members, obviously we touched on Street Marshals earlier, Marshals report. This report is looking to the existing Street Marshal scheme that's in place. Currently, the funding that's in place is one-off funding. It's funding that started following the pandemic in December 2020. from the Welcoming Back Fund. That funded street marshals for a period of time around a number of towns in North Devon, following the lockdown periods in 2021. Scheme was then, it stopped, it reinstated in March 22 using some COVID funds, Contained Outbreak Management Fund, again for a short period of time, with an expanded role to include de-escalating situations that could lead to antisocial behaviour. Following the success of those schemes, a subsequent increase in antisocial behaviour incidents occurred, and a public survey which determined that an increased presence by uniformed enforcement officers should remain in suspension to make people feel safe. The team put a successful bid to the Safer Streets Fund, which provided funding from round 4 to cover street marshal costs in Barnstaple for 22-23 and for a period of time up until the end of September this year. The street marshals have been a success. They've contributed to a significant reduction in crime reduction and incidents of ASB being reported. In section 1.6, you can see some statistics there in the 12-month period from June 22 to May 23 compared to the same period the year before. Reported crime decreased by 18% and reported incidents of ASB decreased by 34%. However, the funding does come to an end on the 30th of September, and there are options obviously for the council. The options are to continue the street marshal office. That obviously has a financial cost associated with it. Or to stop the service because obviously it was only introduced with one-off funding, so there isn't any ongoing funding provision built into our revenue budget. And also there is an argument that it's a wider stakeholder service that's being provided here between council, police, other stakeholders in terms of the impact that antisocial behaviour has on our town centres. The purpose of this report is to set out a proposal, also covering the benefits of the current scheme, but to seek approval to enable the scheme to continue until the end of March 2024, but also look at the scheme operating not only just in Barnstaple but also in Ilfracombe, with a view then within the next 6 months to look at a long-term partnership funding in place from April 2024. The Superintendent of Police, Toby Davies, has emailed just to add his rate in terms of the value of the street marshals. I'll just read out what he sent me. Street marshals have been a great asset to the town centre of Barnstaple. Feedback from the business community, partners and residents have been really positive. The consistent presence and connection to the town centre radio network and CCTV system has enabled the street marshals to address environmental and antisocial behaviour issues at the earliest opportunity and prevent matters escalating further. Crime and ASB data shows a significant reduction since they've been present. There is little doubt that their presence is both reassuring to youth in the town centre area and preventative. As local police area commander for North and West Devon and current chair of the North Devon Torridge Community Safety Partnership, I'm incredibly keen to see the street marshal staying in post and welcome the idea of moving them between Barnstaple and Ilfracombe. My team work closely with the street marshals and together we can continue to make a real impact on quality of life and reassurance in our town centres. I would also look to work with NDDC in finding sustainable funding options for the continued presence and will keep my ears to the ground if I hear any funding bid opportunities. So, Chair, this report is obviously looking at a short-term measure, obviously, to provide a continuation of the street marshals with a view to them working with not only the local police but other stakeholders to the value that the street marshals provide, see if a longer-term sustainable funding opportunity can be provided. The report sets out obviously the role of the street marshals and obviously the benefits that brings. I'm sure members have had a chance to have a look at that, so I won't go over that in any much detail. The response the marshals are having a huge positive impact on the day-to-day running in the town centre has been valued by obviously a number of businesses and individuals, and some of their comments are shown in the report in section 4.15.
Yeah.
In terms of budget availability, there isn't enough budget availability to provide the same level of service in Barnstaple and Ilfracombe. So currently the service runs 7 days a week. However, there is an opportunity to provide that 7-day week cover, 7 hours a day over split across Barnstaple and Ilfracombe, whilst those longer term sustainable funding opportunities can be looked at. The cost of that to provide it for the next 6 months would be £46,000. When we were running the Safer Streets Fund last year and in this year, some of the interventions included the buying in of external resources to provide Safer Streets Fund interventions. We actually used some of our own staff to provide that. That allowed us to charge those officer time costs to the Safer Streets Fund and get the credit back into our revenue budget in the last financial year. At the end of the last financial year, members approved to place that into an earmark reserve for town centre management initiatives around provisions such as safety and security. At the moment, there is an earmark reserve that has a balance of just under £50,000, hasn't it? And that would be sufficient to cover the proposed 6-month contract outlined in this report, to cover that cost of a 6-month contract, 7 days a week, 7 hours a day cover, all the street marshals to continue. And those days and hours to be split across Barnstable and Ilfracombe. In that next 6-month period, then discussions take place between Hannah and the team, the police and other partners to look at a sustainable solution moving forwards. The recommendations in your report are on pages 248, which is 2.1 to 2.3. Those recommendations are that contract procedure will be waived and approval will be given to enter into a contract with the existing provider up until the 31st of March. And that authority be delegated to the place manager for town centres and myself to determine the exact operating hours of the scheme in consultation with key partners such as police, etc., based on the demand and the availability of that budget. And subject to those two approvals, the cost of the Marshall scheme be funded from the town centre management earmark reserve that was set up for this purpose, as set out in section 5. That's taken.
Thank you. Well, one thing I must say is that Barnstable is a lot nicer place to visit. And I think crime has gone down, and shopkeepers are telling me that absolutely the scheme really, really works and it's an advantage. So Paul, when they get to Ilfracombe, hopefully you'll see some good results there as well, because it is, as you can see in the report, 1.6 says it all to me. Reported crime has decreased, reported incidents of ASB, which equates to 34% reduction in 145 incidents. Now, one incident is enough to put somebody visiting a town, and we know that, but it's a lot better and a lot safer in Barnstable, and it's a real good thing that is there for businesses, because businesses attract people when people come in. I think it's really good. Members, are you happy? Any questions, or are you happy to, Councillor Crabb?
You'll be relieved to know that the Ilfracombe Town Council will have a chat. They're happy that we will have a chat. They're not awash with money, but they will have a little bit of a chat. And the other thing is, bear in mind what we discussed earlier, can we amend, stick a 2.4 on there and say that the council should work as soon as possible to get these chaps as approved persons?
Yeah, Councillor Crabb, can you just repeat the number you want to amend?
Well, it's 2.2 and 2.3. I'm wondering whether we add the fact that we're keen to see that they become approved persons as soon as possible.
Chaps and S's.
Chaps and chapesses, yes, of course.
Yeah, happy with that? Are we happy with that, officers? Yeah. Right, excellent. So then, are we going to have a proposer?
Yeah, go on.
Councillor Crabb, seconded. Councillor Bell, all in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 15, refugee support contract, pages 255 to 258, report by service manager. How's it? Well, Ken, the chief exec is going to take this.
John's taking it.
Oh, right, okay then.
Sarah Bentley unfortunately has done a back in over the weekend, so
Speedy recover, Sarah, if you listen to this at home in bed.
Thank you, Chair. Members, you'll be aware that around 12 months ago, the Homes for Ukraine scheme was introduced, and the council received funding for that scheme. As part of that funding, we engaged with a local organisation called the Bickwell Foundation to provide that wider support. That wider support has added significant value in terms of enabling those Homes for Ukraine refugees to be housed successfully. A lot of those households are continuing their placements, but the 12-month funding was originally in place for the Bickwell Foundation from the middle of last year is now obviously coming to an end, and there's a requirement to either continue that provision or to look for alternative provision. The report is recommending that the existing grants agreement that's in place, its delegation to senior solicitor and monitoring officer to make any necessary amendments to that grant agreement with provision to support Ukraine refugees with the Bickwell Foundation to account for the Homes for Ukraine scheme and also the Afghan resettlement scheme ongoing. So the recommendation is for that service to continue. There is funding in place following 22-23 funding, and that funding in place would enable the continuation of that £1,500 payment per refugee to the Pickford Foundation. Just for information, last year the council received £5,500 per refugee funding, of which we used £1,500 of that to pay the Pickford Foundation to provide the wider support that's in place. If that support wasn't in place, we would obviously have to put our own officers in place to provide that wider support. And I can assure you it would cost significantly more than the provision that was put in place. The Pickford Foundation also acts as that point of contact for rematching and sourcing private rented accommodation. And also following the Homes for Ukraine scheme, from this month we'll begin to receive families in Chibnall under the approved Afghan resettlement scheme. The Pickford Foundation have been able to employ a specialist Afghan support officer that would obviously add value to obviously that provision for the Afghan scheme as well. So, members, this report is setting out the proposal to continue with the Pickford Foundation and to delegate to the monitoring officer to make the necessary arrangements with the grant conditions to enable that provision to continue into year 2 of the operation.
Quick thing, Chair. I was going to say, I think, John, it was intended it was going to be for the head of planning, housing and health in consultation with me, but it seems that it was because it just says authorising consultation with senior solicitor. So I think it makes more sense that Jeremy Mann's role does it in consultation with me, if that makes sense.
That is right. Yeah, people just add that in to request members to authorise the head of planning. Okay. Consultation.
Yeah, members happy with that? Excellent. Councillor Ward?
Yeah, that's what I would like to move then, because I mean, this makes sense, doesn't it? It's really important that we support the Ukrainians, and this is an effective way of doing it. So I'm happy to move with the recommendation.
Have I got a seconder? Councillor Clayton, all in favour?
Can I make a comment? It doesn't make me interested on phone.
Okay, I'll just take a vote and just one second. All in favour? That's unanimous.
Can I just say, as somebody who is involved with the Homes for Ukraine scheme, that Pickwell don't just support the refugees themselves, they also support host families. And I think that's a very important note, that in Norfolk, the breakdown of the relationships between host families and the refugees has been far lower than other areas of the country, and largely because of Pickwell being able to come in and help sort out differences.
Yeah, marvellous work to do. Thank you for being a host yourself. Thank you. Item 16, urgent decisions taken by the Chief Executive attached. Okay.
Which there was only the one, which is there to note. And that was the one, if members recall, you stayed behind that for the last formal professional resources meeting, just to run through the local authority housing fund and the application to phase 2. And members all agreed that they would be happy to do that. Because it wasn't a formal decision, I've taken the decision formally, if you like, and my delegate has.
Yeah, all those in favour of noting Ken's decision? All in favour? Unanimous. Excellent. And now, do we have a debrief?
Yes, we said we'd have a quick briefing on the local plan, where we are.
Okay, so shall we say 10-minute break and then 5 minutes? 5 minutes.